Thus begins our Chicago tea tour. The good, the bad, the ugly, and the yummy of afternoon tea. Chicago tea tour stop number 1. Our first stop was at Russian Tea Time. We booked our reservation online and we were the first table seated as soon as they opened. This place was extremely busy, and by the time we left, both dining rooms were full of guests. Let's get into the details, starting with the good. Even though it was very busy and jam-packed full of tables and people, I really liked this venue. I liked its vibe and ambiance and found it quite pretty. Our server was friendly and did a fine job, even though he never asked us to refresh our teapots. As the restaurant got busier, that side of service started to wane. The menu here is a bit confusing, but we ordered classic tea service for 2 people at $44 per person, so $88 total for 2. But it does seem common that people here share the serving, as we had to explain that we wanted 2 servings. All that to say, we each got to choose a tea. I chose the Earl Grey Bravo, and it was delicious. It was a very strong bergamot flavor, and it was amazing. Anyway, the good here was the ambiance and my strong bergamot Earl Grey tea. There wasn't anything bad here per se, but the food was not my favorite. So these are personal preferences, of course. Let me tell you about it, starting with the savory tier. We each received a cucumber cream cheese sandwich covered in dried parsley, an egg salad round with raw onion on a sesame bread, a salmon sandwich with sesame seeds, which I did not eat because I do not like salmon, a chicken salad sandwich with cranberry, which tasted good and likely had small raw onion in it as well, and then finally there was a crepe with veggies. We were told it was called sauerkraut, but it tasted like cabbage and carrots in a vinaigrette to me, without the fermentedness that I know of sauerkraut, so maybe we were talking about different things. This was my favorite item that was served. It reminded me of a Vietnamese spring roll, but on a soft crepe. It was delicious. For scones, we each received 2, but if you were sharing 1 serving of this, as many people seem to be doing, you'd each have 1 scone. These scones were quite different to scones I've had before. The scones were served with a shared bowl of whipped cream and strawberry jam. We also asked for butter, so you will see that here too. You will not be seeing clotted cream here though. I cannot explain why they were so yellow. The only thing I could come up with was that there was lots of eggs in them. The scones tasted quite bland and blah. Not sweet, not savory. They were extremely light and airy. We both agreed that they tasted better with the butter, so what was lacking in flavor was helped with the butter. I didn't hate the scones, but I didn't love them either. They weren't my personal preference and favorite style, but they might just be yours. The same story continues with the sweets. We each received a cupcake, a chocolate cherry cake, a sugar cookie, a lemon square, and a condensed milk nut cookie. I appreciated the different shapes and flavors and textures, so that was good. However, I wasn't a huge fan of the quality and the taste of these. The chocolate cake had a tasty cherry icing, but the cake itself was very dry and needed more of that icing to carry its dryness. The lemon bar had an odd consistency and was underbaked. I think it was also made with sweetened condensed milk, and the bottom was fairly raw, so it wasn't good. The cupcake was also very plain and very yellow. Again, I have no idea how they make these things so yellow. It was also dry, however this time the icing couldn't save it. The sugar cookie sandwich had some chocolate chips inside. Maybe, I wasn't really sure. They tasted like low quality if it was chocolate, and they were only found on half of the cookie. The cookie itself wasn't too bad. It was buttery, but not super. My tea friend did not like hers as she thought hers tasted very overbaked. I was excited by the nut-shaped cookie, but once I got into it, it was very dry, and I ended up not even liking it, so that was disappointing. Definitely these sweets were not my personal style of sweets. For me, they lacked quality, but they might work perfectly well for you and be your style. Again, I did like the variety in shapes and textures, so at least we had that going for us. For the ugly, I don't really have anything ugly to report on. I liked this venue. And then as for the yummy, as I mentioned, the best bite was the cabbage crepe on the savory tier. They serve crepes on their menu, so maybe that's their specialty. As I said, this afternoon tea was $44 per person, which is about 62 Canadian dollars per person. This is a higher price tag for this quality, but not completely outrageous because of the quantity of food served was on par with expectations, and we are in a major city here, so this price is fine. Overall, this food was not my preferred style, but it might be perfect for you. There wasn't anything really wrong here, except for no clotted cream, of course. This just wasn't my type of afternoon tea, but I'm still glad that we went to experience something different. However, using my same criteria to be consistent, my Queen of Afternoon Tea rating is 2.5 out of 5 stars. This is more likely a 3 or higher for most people. There you have it, stop number 1 on the Chicago Tea Tour. Have you been to Russian Tea Time? Would you go? Comment below with your impressions of this venue and follow along for the rest of our Chicago Tea Tour.